To do that.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our LEED information session. And LEED is Leaders in Equitable Evaluation and Diversity. This is the Change Matrix team. We are currently leading the Expanding the Bench effort, of which LEED is a program of. And we're super excited that we are able to launch off our call for the third cohort of LEED scholars. And so this session today is to allow folks who are interested in applying to ask us questions about the process and criteria and about the program. And so we are happy that you've joined us today, and the session is also being recorded so that it can be viewed later on as well. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to you, Sandra, for folks to meet our team.
Sure. Well, actually, Rochelle, you can start it off. If you want to just describe your role and then also share a little bit about Change Matrix.
Sure. Thank you, Sandra. So again, I'm Rochelle Espiritu. I am the co-director for the Expanding the Bench effort, and I'm also a founding partner of Change Matrix, which is a small women-owned, minority-owned business that is a virtual business. We were selected by Annie E. Casey, who seeded the Expanding the Bench and LEED initiative last year to continue the efforts and to make this a field building effort. So we're really excited to have the honor to lead Expanding the Bench, and this is the team whom we've assembled to help with these efforts. And so I'm going to pass it over to my partner, Elizabeth Waitsig, who is the co-director of ETB as well.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to say good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are in the country. I am based in Connecticut, and what you might want to know about Change Matrix is that we're all over the country. And so we are in all 4 time zones, and just happy to have you on board today and looking forward to hearing your questions and welcoming you onto the webinar. And I'll pass it to Sandra.
Actually, let's do Alina. I'm last.
Okay, I'll pass to Alina.
I'm Alina Taniguchi. I am the project coordinator and communications director for the ETB program in general, so I'll be kind of overlapping on both the LEED and ACE network programs that we have within there, and I'll pass it over to Carla.
Hi, everybody. My name is Carla Mendez, and I am the product manager for Expanding the Bench, assisting work for LEED and our sister initiative, the ACE Network. I'm very excited to continue working on this initiative, which I have spent 4 years on. So continuing to assist the very important work of increasing racial and ethnic diversity in the field. And lastly, we have Sandra.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Sandra Silva. I'm the project director for LEED. I did want to introduce our other team member, London Losey, who's unable to make the call today, but she is directing the ACE network, which stands for Advancing Collaborative Evaluation. And the goal of the network is really to promote the practice of excellent equitable evaluation by supporting diverse evaluators from historically underrepresented racial and ethnic groups. And the network is really trying to connect these diverse evaluators with philanthropic organizations and other funders to expand the practice of culturally responsive and equitable evaluation. So if you are subscribed to our newsletter, you will see our call for applications when that goes out to apply to the ACE network. Okay. So let's talk a little bit. We'll share a little bit of information about the LEED program, and then we'll have time to hear from an alum of the program, Noe Chavez, and then we'll have time for questions. So both of these programs, LEED and ACE, are really trying to increase the diversity. They're part of this larger initiative, Expanding the Bench. As was mentioned, this program was funded by Annie E. Casey, and is now being led by us, Change Matrix. So Annie E. Casey is still supporting the program along with other funders such as the California Healthcare Foundation and Wellspring Philanthropic Fund. So essentially, LEED is an evaluation training program. It's designed to develop a pipeline of diverse leaders that are trained in culturally responsive and equitable evaluation, or CRE. That's the acronym that we'll be referencing. Essentially, this is a field of evaluation. This is how we're defining it now, but that is really integrating an inclusion and diversity lens that really takes into account the importance of cultural factors such as history, social, economic, racial, ethnic, gender, those sorts of things, and follows a participatory process. So that it includes the populations that are most impacted for the purpose of achieving equity. So the premise of LEED is that the inclusion of evaluators from diverse and historically underrepresented racial and ethnic groups will increase the likelihood that the methods, analysis, and interpretation will be appropriate for the communities that they serve. So since the beginning of LEED, there have been 35 scholars that have completed the program. We are currently recruiting for 15 scholars for the next cohort, which will start in September of 2019. So the program includes 3 core elements. Scholars are matched with a mentor that will provide mentoring throughout the entire program. And mentors are really evaluation experts. So someone with 15 plus years of evaluation experience. They'll reinforce content that you'll be learning throughout the program. They'll really serve to help network with others in the field, make connections in conferences or through email or other relationships. And they'll advise scholars in other professional manners. And the second component is the online curriculum. And so this is scheduled for the fall. And this will include the completion of online coursework that is being developed in partnership and will be administered with American University. So the coursework will include core evaluation competencies and will be really with a real focus on CRE, which will be integrated throughout the curriculum. So it will include a mix of didactic learning as well as social learning supports through online discussions, activities, and assessments. And then following the curriculum, in the spring through the summer, scholars will complete a practicum experience. And so this will give scholars the opportunity to apply new knowledge that they've learned with a practicum site on an actual evaluation project. Most of these experiences are going to be remote unless a scholar happens to be located close to a practicum site. So some practicum sites in the past have been Mathematical Policy Research, RAND, Urban Institute, and Child Trends. And typically the practicum experience has been approximately 40 to 60 hours that has been spread out over a 6-month period. And practicum sites are typically asked to identify one or more discrete components of an evaluation project for the scholars to support. So this could include developing the design of the evaluation, or contributing to measure development or data collection, or preparation of a final report or other deliverables. So these are the key dates related to the scholar experience. So once scholars are accepted into the program, they'll be matched with a mentor in July. We'll connect you, so hopefully you'll have a chance to at least have a phone or a virtual discussion. Soon after that, we'll have an orientation call, and then you'll be meeting your mentor in September. So we have all scholars and mentors will be required to attend a meeting September 24th and 25th, which will take place in Baltimore at the Annie KC offices. So you'll have some time to meet the other scholars, connect with your mentors, and then learn a little bit more about the curriculum, as well as have some information or more discussions around CRE. In the fall, once we confirm the practicum sites, we'll have them share descriptions of the projects, the potential projects that scholars can apply for. So we'll open those up. We'll open the application process up in December and January. Scholars will review the descriptions, share their CV and interest, and then rank their top 3 projects. We'll then have the practicum sites organize interviews and then select the scholars as well. And so we'll have that matching process finished by March so that all of the practicum experiences will begin then. And then at the end of the experience in October 2020, we'll have a culmination event, sort of like a little graduation ceremony, really celebrating everyone's accomplishments. We'll bring together the scholars and mentors again for this in-person meeting, which will also be coordinated with AEA at the end of October. So I know some of you probably already have this information, but just to, I think just to go over the eligibility criteria, right now we are seeking candidates that have a doctoral degree. And we're asking that they have 3 years of experience, postdoctoral experience. We are specifically recruiting for individuals that are members of racial and ethnic populations. So right now, these are all the populations right now that are currently meet our eligibility requirements. We're also looking for individuals that are really interested in culturally responsive and equitable evaluation, to learning more about it, becoming evaluators and leaders in the field, and really applying this in their future work. We certainly want individuals who are committed to social justice and equity as well. And then we do have a requirement that you be a current resident in the United States and eligible to work in the US. So in the past, applicants have had research experience in fields, in social service fields such as criminal justice or psychology, public health, mental health, sociology, social work. When we are reviewing your application, aside from the criteria that we just mentioned, we want to make sure that you're also a good fit based on your experience, that you have the ability to meet the program requirements, that you have the passion and commitment to equity and diversity, and really can explain how you will be using culturally responsive and equitable evaluation in your future work and career. And we certainly are looking for those that have a leadership capacities. We are trying to build leadership in the field, and as well as have a strong writing and research skills. And then we also will get feedback from your references as well that you list. So these are the key dates related to the application timeline. Applications are due at the end of the day. I think we said 5 p.m. Eastern on May the 1st. So that will include completing the application and as well as attaching your CV and a writing sample. Finalists will be contacted in mid-May if they are selected to be interviewed. We will be conducting interviews from May the 20th to June the 14th. At the end of June, we are asking all these potential scholars to complete an assessment, which will be used to match you with your mentor. And then at the end of June, scholars will be informed of their selection. All right, so that's all the information that we're sharing in terms of the LEED eligibility criteria, the process and description of the program. Next, we thought it would be helpful to hear from someone who has actually gone through the program. So we're really delighted to have Noe Chavez, who is currently at Charles Drew University. And Noe, I think we'll open it up to you. And if you want to take, 5 to 10 minutes and just share a little bit about what this experience meant to you. And then if you have any suggestions or recommendations for future scholars, that would be helpful.
Sure. So, hi everyone. You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm currently faculty. I'm new faculty at here at Charles Drew University, which is located in South Los Angeles. But I was actually a postdoc research fellow during my time as a lead scholar. So I was part of the second cohort of LEED, which ended last November in AEA, the culmination in Cleveland. And it was a wonderful experience. I think it really, and I should say that I'm new to the evaluation field, so I came in having not a lot of extensive experience as an evaluator. Although I mean I guess identify as a researcher, and I should say I'm a trained community psychologist, so I am I guess some sort of familiar with program evaluation, the significance of it, the importance of it for working with community and issues of equity and inclusion, diversity. But I didn't really have a lot of, I guess, professional or technical education and as an evaluator. So I think LEED was my first opportunity to really kind of delve deep into kind of learning more about the different aspects of evaluation and kind of develop a deeper understanding of what it is. I didn't know that there was a whole field of evaluation and but it was great. I think I think for any program, always oftentimes the great things are meeting the meeting new people and connecting with folks and networking and the mentorship. So for me, that was I think key. I'm still in communication with my mentor. She's been wonderful, Yolanda Suarez Balcazar, and actually I had met her husband when I was a graduate student at University of Illinois Chicago. She's there, a professor there at UIC, but I hadn't met her. And but then I think it was a great. I think LEED, what happened is that in part we did like a personality inventory, and they had, I think they did a wonderful job in terms of matching us with regards to our backgrounds. She's a community psychologist as well, so then she really has helped me with connecting me with other opportunities beyond LEED in terms of my own professional development within, for example, my professional organization as in the Society for Community Research and Action, which is a division of APA. And so that's led to other opportunities. I'm currently collaborating with her as a co-guest editor of a special issue of health disparities and community engagement for the American Journal of Community Psychology. Still working with her on other stuff. And then I'm still working with some other LEED scholars on, we did a for AEA, and then we decided to kind of build from the symposium to do a publication. So then we're in the process of trying to develop an article from that presentation that we did, that symposium. It's another wonderful opportunity. And then I'm still working with my evaluation site, which was Harder & Company Community Research, which is based in, well, they have different offices in California. One is in San Diego, and that's who I'm working with. That was a great experience because it was, close to, I'm in LA, so it was close to where I'm, living, and I was able to, drive there for a learning collaborative and participate in that learning collaborative, be there in person, meet other people from the YMCA that they were working with on evaluating their Connections 2020 program, which is a youth-focused program on improving mental health services for under-resourced youth. And so that was a nice, that was in the, I think, in the summer or spring of last year. And so, and then I'm still, again, like I mentioned, working with them on trying to finalize a paper for publication that the YMCA wanted to disseminate, the knowledge that the findings that they've had found from their Connections 2020 program from the YMCA. They thought it was, a great program in terms of really, kind of being innovative and creating new frameworks for thinking about how to work with youth from at-risk, backgrounds and developing better ways to connect with them and develop relationships, positive relationships, and give them more opportunities. And so, it's been just great in terms of being able to really take the lead in helping them structure a paper and hopefully get that published soon. And in terms of, again, just meeting people and staying connected with some other scholars working on stuff. So I mean, I have just a lot of positive things to say. The online course was pretty intensive, so that was an aspect where I believe I was still working on it through the holidays, trying to finish some of the modules. But it was great learning again for me. I'm new to evaluation, not as new anymore, obviously, but so I was doing a lot of learning and growing and kind of connecting it to stuff that I knew from research in terms of measurement and so forth, but just kind of thinking a little bit more deeply about how to be in terms of the professional aspects and the identity as someone that actually thinks very intentionally and systematically about doing, oftentimes as researchers, we think about like how to design an intervention, but might not think very deeply about how to design an evaluation from the very beginning, and then doing it in a way that really reflects equity and inclusion of different perspectives and different voices of the community. And so I should say also that another nice thing about the opportunity is that now I'm currently, as a faculty here, developing new connections with people in the community here locally. And so there's been some opportunities to work on evaluation, and there's a new center that has been developed here in South LA near Compton and Watts that's focused on healing and trauma prevention. So they were that's sort of perfect timing, because I was kind of met them when they were just developing it, and then they're in need of help with developing a plan for evaluating their initiative. So I told them, well, I've had this LEED experience going through the program and have mentors that have been great in terms of supporting me and resources and the learning that I've had. So I think the LEED helped me prepare to kind of put me at a good position to be able to kind of show that I have the competencies and the motivation to work with them on this evaluation project. And it's perfect because it's focused on youth. I mean, a lot of the focus is youth positive development, youth empowerment, which is my area of research. And so that's going to be, so I'm in the process of collaborating with them and working to develop an evaluation for that kind of broad comprehensive initiative in the community. And then another thing I just said, so I was a postdoc when I was going through LEED, and then I finished my postdoc last year in the summer, and I was in need of a job, and I couldn't move out of state because my wife is finishing her program in clinical psych. She's doing her internship, which is starting in the fall. So I couldn't be very mobile and go very far away. So I needed to find a job here locally. And luckily, I through the LEED program, I also was able to apply for some things. So then the Hardware company that had a research associate position that opened up while I was searching for jobs, and so I applied for it and actually received an invitation for an interview. But at that time I had already luckily, fortunately, found this faculty position at Charles Drew, and it worked out for me. But if it hadn't, then I think I would have, potentially, had that opportunity to work with Hardware company in terms of after my postdoc had ended. Yeah, so there's a lot of good things that happened.
Well, no, I thank you. So, I mean, that's really exciting to hear that experience that you gained through this program has been very relevant, and that there's still and that, you're continuing those relationships that were made through the program. There was a question that we got from somebody, and just as a reminder, you can, we're taking questions via the question tab, so you can go ahead and just enter your question there. But somebody was interested in knowing if you were during your practicum placement, if you were the only scholar that was at that organization, or were there multiple people?
Well, I think there was, for my organization, there was someone else. There was another scholar in that same organization, but I believe they were working on a different project. So our company, I think at least 2 projects that were part of the, that were, there for, as an opportunity for these scholars to work on. So there was another scholar. Yeah, and I believe it might have been the same case for other organizations where it was at least maybe 2 or 3 people working with the same organization. And it might have been on the same project, and in some cases it might have been on different projects.
Yes, I think you're correct. So when we are speaking with the practicum host sites around the evaluation project, we think that we encourage them to be able to bring in 2 to 3 scholars, just because, it kind of, again, it sort of reinforces the relationships and provides additional support. So there could be some situations where you may be working with another scholar, or where you may be the sole scholar in the particular organization. It really depends on the nature of the project, I think. So that sort of varies by project.
Sandra, I also read that question a little differently to whether or not the scholar might be the only evaluator on the project. And what I would say to that is also that you might be joining a team of other evaluators, and or you might be asked as the only evaluator on a project. And so there's variation in the kinds of projects that people were able to do through their practicum. For many of our scholars, it's a time limited effort. And so the project for the scholar had to fit within oftentimes a larger project that the company or firm or organization had going on. So you might enter into a piece of the evaluation. For instance, you might be more involved in the initial thinking or the design of the evaluation, whereas other scholars might have come in at the end or tail end of an evaluation project, so might be more engaged in the analysis and interpretation and write-up. So there's varied experiences that you might have depending on the practicum site that you end up getting matched with.
Mm-hmm. And it's really hard to say now, because I think the projects, obviously they vary from year to year, because it's whatever projects the particular evaluation firm has, won for that given year. Thank you, Rochelle, for clarifying that. I know there was a question about phases or steps in the selection process, and there really are 2 major steps. One is completion of the application. So there's specific information about your educational and work history that's required in that application, along with submitting your CV and writing sample. Once we review the applications, we will then select scholars for interviews, and so that's the step 2 in the application process. So hopefully that's more clear.
And then, Sandra, there are a couple questions about the 3 to 5 year experience criteria. Could you explain that a little bit more? There are some scenarios where people might have more than or less than, and so if you could describe that.
Well, so right now we're really trying to recruit individuals that have similar levels of experience. We really are looking at 3 to 5 years of experience. So currently, if you have more than 5 years, you're not eligible. If you have fewer than 3, you're not eligible. And the reason being, we feel that having scholars with more than 5 years of experience, and especially if you have experience in evaluation, then the curriculum may seem maybe
I feel too basic.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think so. I think too basic. So I think in the past there was more variation in terms of the level of experience, and we found that those that had more experience felt that the content was not challenging enough and really wasn't new. So we're really trying to hone in on the right years of experience that make sense. So, having a little experience is helpful, but having too much, I think, is not. It just sort of, I think you wouldn't get as much out of the program.
And I think if you have a particular or a unique situation, I'm seeing somebody write in a little bit about when they got their PhD and that they've been doing other work, feel free to give Sandra a call to maybe walk through that a little bit more to see if maybe your particular experience might still make you eligible. So we're open to the conversation, I would say.
And I know that someone asked how many individuals we're accepting, and it's 15. We're accepting 15 individuals to start in September.
Sandra, there was also a question earlier in the queue about the example of the courses that will be provided at American University. So I was wondering if you could give a little frame for that. And I'm happy to jump into.
Yeah, well, I mean, they haven't been developed, so it's hard to speak to the actual courses because we're in the very early stages. I think the idea is that I would be graduate level content that would focus on evaluation. So for those that may not have a background in evaluation, it certainly I think would be really helpful in establishing that foundational knowledge. And as I mentioned before, this curriculum is a little different from others in that it would really have this focus on culturally responsive and equitable evaluation. So that means there will be content in that, and that means that some of the activities or case studies are all around, focused on CRE. So that's what sort of distinguishes this from other curricula. So Michelle, I don't know if you have additional information you wanted to share.
So there was also some more question, another question from somebody who was interested a little bit more in terms of time commitment and the course structure. So in terms of the course structure, what we have done is, we received feedback from previous scholars in the previous 2 cohorts that the integration of culturally responsive and equitable evaluation in the curricula needed to be strengthened. And so that is part of the reason for shifting to working with American University and really building up our curricula to have that strong emphasis. And so what we are doing is designing 2 courses. So each course will last approximately 2 months, and they are all online. And they will focus on, as Sandra said earlier, some core competencies of evaluation, plus this extra focus on CRE. And so the courses are, I believe, weekly, and we will confirm this, but they are self-paced. And so you can do it you can do the course, you do the course online at your pace, but within a certain structure, right? So you have to do something every week pretty much. And yes. I believe it is, Sandra, it's about 6 hours was what they said of time.
Right, right. The estimate of commitment is 6 to 8 hours a week.
Right. Right, and so you'll have both your online course, and then you also have opportunity for interaction with your instructor as well as your peers along this, because part of the intent is that we create a peer learning group with this curriculum. Mm-hmm. So that's all I would add for the curriculum. If you have additional questions as follow-up to that, feel free to put it into the chat box.
And I see that there is a question asking about the practicum experiences and how they're chosen, and are they university affiliated? And actually, most of them are not university affiliated. I think we may have had 1 or 2 universities in the past. I mentioned that some examples have been RAND or Mathematica, Child Trends, and we essentially are looking for organizations that have a commitment to exploring culturally responsive and equitable evaluation and integrating that into their project work. So it is part of the recruitment process, and I would say that for this third cohort, as we're now planning for cohort 3, a number of past practicum sites actually want to continue participating. So that's nice. We feel like they have an understanding of what we're trying, of the program goals and what we're trying, and the experience that we're trying to create for scholars. And I think beyond really making a commitment to select a project that they can integrate culturally responsive and equitable evaluation, we're also asking organizations to designate somebody that can serve almost as a secondary mentor, but really provide oversight for the scholar. So you're not you're not alone in this process. You know, you do have somebody that you can go to within the organization if you have questions or challenges or that sort of thing.
And Noe, maybe you can speak to this. There was a question about the amount of workload that LEED scholars are expected to fulfill during their practicum. We've been telling in our materials, I think we say about 40 to 60 hours, and it can be done over the course of up to 4 months, maybe a little bit longer.
Right,
and it
maybe
really
longer.
does, again, depend on the practicum site. So could you just share a little bit about what that was like for you?
Sure, yeah. So at least for my side, you know, I was pretty lucky that they were very flexible in terms of the time, and you know, knowing that I had, you know, my regular job and other projects that I was doing and so forth. So and you know, so it could be spread out. It doesn't, you know, it's not depending on, you know, like for example, for the learning collaborative that I did, you know, when I went to San Diego and met with them, then, you know, I also was, my role was to kind of lead part of the workshop. So, you know, in preparation for that, then like the week prior to it, I was a little bit busier in preparing like my presentation, my talk for the learning collaborative. And then, you know, but in terms of like an actual the deliverables or, you know, a paper or something, you know, I think it's very doable in terms of, you know, I was very busy with other things and you know, in terms of, and I'm still working with them, and actually it worked out that they were able to extend my you know, partnership with them, my collaboration. So then I've again been, you know, working on a paper that they're still trying to complete, you know, because it's just in terms of what they were working on, and then leading to being able to get the work, you know, the stuff analyzed from a focus group. That takes time, and then get to, you know, to the point that you can actually work on a paper, and then you're working on a paper, co-authoring it with, not, you know, it wasn't just folks from Hardware & Company, but also the staff from the YMCA. And you know, when you're working on a paper with multiple co-authors, that could take a pretty long time in terms of, you know, having everyone read it and contribute to it, and then getting people's feedback. That takes a while. So we're at the point where we're, I think, getting close to finalizing it. But in, you know, in terms of overall, you know, the time, you know, again, it varies. Other scholars might have had a very different experience, but it just depends on the projects. And then, you know, the overall, I think there's a lot of flexibility.
Right. I mean, I think that's a good point, because you have to keep in mind that these evaluation projects have a specific scope of work that the firm has agreed to. There are certain timelines and deadlines associated with that scope of work. And sometimes there's flexibility and sometimes there's not. And so what we'll hope to get, or to be able to share with all the scholars, so in addition to a description of the project, is also to describe some of the key timelines. And so that as scholars are applying for these projects, for their practicum projects, then they'll have a sense of what the anticipated timeline might be in case you have a potential conflict. Because everyone, you know, obviously, well, at least for past cohorts, people were working, you know, like Noe, and had full-time jobs. And so you have to find a way to kind of work this into your already busy, you know, schedule.
And sorry, Sandra.
Go ahead.
Just wanted to share that in terms of the variety of host sites that are involved in LEED, we are looking to find more sites that are philanthropic organizations, foundations, essentially, because we are interested in also increasing evaluators' readiness to work in the foundation field, which is a little bit different from working in an evaluation firm or at a university. And so we did have a couple folks who did a practicum at a foundation last time, and we're looking for more who might serve as host sites as well. And the other piece is that we did have at least one scholar, if not more, who identified sites that they were interested in serving at their site for a practicum. And so we also once scholars are in, also welcome ideas for whom we could, for organizations or firms that we can reach out to engage in the LEED program as practicum sites as well.
Yes, we're definitely open. If you are already working at an organization that has evaluation work, then your organization could potentially apply to be a practicum site. So there is, we will be announcing a call for practicum sites, I think during our main newsletter, and then we'll have a short application that will be included as part of that. But we are, I mean, as Rochelle said, we're really trying to diversify, I think, the types of practicum sites and also the location. So in the past, many of them have been based in the DC area. And so we're trying to recruit sites that are located in other parts of the country as well. So are there any other outstanding questions?
There's a few in the Q&A box, Sandra. I didn't know if you were tracking those. There is one on the number of applicants that were submitted in the last few cohorts. And Carla, I didn't know if that was something you might be able to answer.
Sure. So for cohort 1, we had approximately 35 applicants apply for LEED, of which some folks were deemed ineligible. And so the folks that we actually reviewed applications for, and by ineligible, I mean that they didn't fit the criteria that we have outlined, that Sandra had a PowerPoint slide for. So the actual amount that we reviewed was about 30 or so. And then for cohort 2, very similar numbers there, where we had about 35 or so people apply, and of that amount, 27 were eligible and proceeded to the next round of the interview phase.
Thank you. There was also a question about working in the education field. So I don't know if we had any sites that were kind of more based in education, either K-12 or higher ed.
I'm not sure, but that I mean, I think we're certainly open to that. Again, oh, go ahead, Noah.
I was just going to add that I think there was, because I was interviewed by some other host sites before I then decided to, go work with Harder and Company. And then like I heard hearing from other scholars, I believe there was, not sure which site it was, but then I believe they were working with the school, with some schools. So if they, the organizations in some cases were working with school settings on projects that were definitely like educationally related. So
okay. I mean, I think what will happen is that we'll have more practicum sites available than we have scholars. So that way the scholars have a lot of options, based on your interest and your background and your experience.
So Sandra, there is another question asking about if scholars past LEED are able to share their practicum experience for work moving forward. And I think it's dependent on the practicum site and if there's any sort of non-disclosure agreements, but I don't know if anyone here has a better idea of that.
So the question is if the past scholars could share their practicum experience, like a deliverable. Is that the question related to their practicum experience?
It's not as specific as that, but it asks if you are able to share with with organizations post-LEED experience that work experience represented, what that work represented.
Alina, I think you're right in saying that it would be contingent upon the agreement between the LEED scholar and the practicum site that they're placed in. I know that we've had LEED scholars in the past actually present some of their findings or their work at the American Evaluation Association's conference. And so their host sites were on board with their sharing of what they learned, but it's a case-by-case basis, as many of these questions and answers are.
Right, and then it also depends on who that work was completed for. So depending on who the client is for that particular evaluation project, they also, I think, would have to weigh in on that. But I'm glad you mentioned that, Carla, because we actually are really encouraging all our LEED scholars to publish and to present their experience, if when possible, and maybe in collaboration with other scholars as well.
Well, and Sandra, one of the things that we saw at the CREA conference was that the scholars were presenting in collaboration with their practicum host sites. So that also happened.
Oh, that's great. Do you know how many scholars were presenting there at CREA?
I don't know the exact number. Rochelle, do you know?
I think there were at least four scholars who were there. And CREA, for those who don't know, is it's the Center for Culturally Responsive Evaluation and Assessment. It's a conference that occurs about every 16 to 18 months. And one of our interests for the LEED program is also, after LEED scholars graduate, is to offer opportunities for LEED alumni to gather at these kind of conferences. And so that is part of what we're hoping to achieve as we continue to build out and enhance the LEED program.
Yeah, actually a couple of LEED scholars and one of the LEED mentors partnered to present a pre-conference workshop. I think it was maybe even a half-day workshop, and it was basically by request because they had done a previous presentation and everyone was just like, I want more of this, give me more of this. And so they heard that and they were able to deliver on that at CREA. So that was really exciting for the program and for those individuals as well.
Great. And as part of our evaluation activities, we're also conducting follow-up surveys with the alum. So as a scholar, we ask you to complete surveys too to provide feedback on your curriculum and practicum experience. But post-program, we are asking the LEED alum to also complete short surveys. And it really is to get this kind of information, to get a sense of how you're using this information, to what extent you are collaborating with other scholars or mentors or practicum sites, and really to get also some information about the evaluation opportunities that scholars have as a result of the program. So that's exciting to hear. I did also just want to mention that you can reach us. We are on our website, expandingthebench.org. You can find a section on LEED, and there is an FAQ there. So as questions come into us through our email at team@expandingthebench.org, we are posting responses in the FAQ, and so we're updating that on a regular basis if you want to check back. And Alina, can you tell people also how to sign up for our newsletter, just so people can stay up to date?
Sure. So actually, if you visit expandingthebench.org, you will find in the footer of the website, there's a button that you can click and fill out a couple of really quick information about yourself, and then click subscribe, and you'll be notified with our Expanding the Bench monthly newsletters. Benchmark.
Thank you.
I wanted to offer to, if if anybody's interested in reaching out, and if you have any other questions, I'm happy to also, kind of from someone that went through the program and kind of my perspective in terms of my experiences with it, I'm happy to answer any other questions as well. Yeah, I'm not sure if Sandra, if you send out my email, but my email is just Noe Chavez at cdrewu.edu, so you can contact me at any time.
Thank you for offering that. It's nice of you. I do have to say that as we've been meeting scholars over the past few months, over the past 6 months, scholars have been really passionate about this program. So in general, you know, we've gotten such positive feedback about the experience itself, but really the connections that were made and the relationships that were established. So there certainly is sort of the knowledge building, but that it really goes deeper than that. So that's always nice to hear. So do we have any new questions that have come in?
There was a question about a writing sample, and it's asking if it can be a peer-reviewed published manuscript where the applicant is the first author, and I believe it's a yes.
Yes, that's a yes.
Okay.
So if there's no other questions, I think we'll probably close a few minutes early. And is there anything else, just turning back to team members, is there anything else that's important to share that we've missed today?
Oh, I just hope you all apply. We're really eager to have this third cohort of LEED scholars this year. Very enthusiastic about our new partnership with American University. Eager to really expand our reach into other systems. And so we hope that you'll consider applying to this wonderful opportunity. And if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to anyone on our team. We're all eager to answer them and support you through this process.
Right. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Have a nice day.
And thank you to Noe for
Thanks.
being a champion, our LEED champion. We really appreciate you sharing your experience and your expertise and offering to answer any additional questions. So thank you again, too.
Well,
Thank you, Noe.
Happy to do it. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.